Since Bridgerton first joined the League of Successful Period Pieces in 2020, it's raised quite a few eyebrows and has set several tongues wagging. Apart from the fans' growing obsession with the Regency core trend and the controversies that have swamped some of the steamier scenes, questions have abounded about the show's historical content and accuracy as well. Dearest gentle watchers, stick around as we answer some of these burning historical questions in today's video. First up, what era is the show set in? As British history, or rather all of history, doesn't enjoy the same reputation as British period dramas, most viewers haven't even heard of the term Regency before the show took off. No, it's got nothing to do with pirates. That's scurvy. The Regency, as its name implies, is actually the period in Britain's history where Prince George was declared the Prince Regent and started to rule in his father's stead. That is until 1820, when George III finally kicked the bucket, making him King George IV. Before the abundance of Georges makes you scratch your head off, a regent is, in the simplest of terms, a make-do monarch who comes into power if the current one's away on business, falls ill, or has a few screws loose, like King George III. Now, for those of you who are wondering if the era was anything like it's on the show, it was and then it wasn't. To elaborate, while historical records describe the age as a period of questionable morals and high fashion, Chris Van Dusen, the show's creator, has taken several liberties with the largely conservative historical materials. Simply put, he's had some of the conventional stuff swapped out for a more modern outlook. Take the orchestral renditions of modern pop hits that feature on the show instead of classical music as an example. Another example is Regate John Page, aka Duke Bassett's explanation of how the show introduces a feminist streak to a typical traditionalist Regency romance in Daphne's character development from a debutante to a woman who knows what she wants, as well as in allowing his character to explore his masculinity. As for the question of whether or not the regent who lent the age its name will be on the showrunners haven't made any definitive statements. However, fans have heaps of questions about the royalty that did make an appearance, so let's hop onto them. Next, was Queen Charlotte really biracial? Although colorblind casting is a wonderful step in the right direction, Bridgerton's portrayal of Queen Charlotte as a monarch of mixed descent has sent historians into a frenzy, where some of them have described the decision as a sad missed opportunity to accurately represent one of the most enduring royal consorts. Others have bitingly gone as far as to label it as an unnecessary nod to woke and cringe culture. So, and if it isn't obvious already, Charlotte wasn't part black. But then, where did the idea of her mixed ancestry come from? Well, the rumor can mostly be attributed to a lone article, which was first uploaded to PBS's Frontline section in 1997. You might have seen it making rounds during Meghan Markle's introduction to the royal family, since that's when it briefly reappeared. However, in case you missed it, fret not, because believe it or not, the contents of the article are pure idle talk, with not even a single citation to back them up. For starters, the researcher Mario de Valdes y Cocom, boy that's a mouthful, has attached a lot of significance to a single black ancestor in the Queen's bloodline who goes 17 whole generations back. On top of that, his theory mainly rests on a broad-nosed depiction of the Queen in a portrait, of all things. While the article has been debunked several times now, the Bridgerton creators decided to explore and expand its claims on the show because, as per them, the show isn't a history lesson but a fictional world catering to modern audiences. Speaking of fiction, let's tackle the question of the Bridgerton family's existence next. Were the Bridgertons real? Even though we perfectly understand where the fans are coming from on this one, sadly, there aren't any known records of a Bridgerton family from the Georgian era. Nonetheless, we may have countless descendants of other but unusually similar families walking the streets of London to this day, many of which, we can assure you, would be down for a scandalous relationship. Jokes aside, a historical family name that comes pretty close to Bridgerton is Bridgman. However, the fact that makes this find even more intriguing is that the family existed at around the same time that the events of Julia Quinn's novel taking place. And, as if things couldn't get any weirder, the family's patriarch, Orlando Bridgman, was also one of 8 children who came into his inheritance in circumstances quite similar to those of Anthony Bridgerton. Even if Quinn hasn't addressed these uncanny similarities, we have reasons to believe that the family played a huge role in her character's profiles. Profiling reminds us of another question that frequently pops up in people's discussion of the show's storyline. Tag along as we reveal certain personalities who made a name for themselves themselves simply by spilling the tea. Were the Society Papers an innovation? Despite Chris Van Deusen's repeated references to the show's break from the original time period, its infamous gossip monger, Lady Whistledown, might actually have existed at some point in the Regency. No, gossip magazines aren't a thing of the 21st century. As a matter of fact, they date back 100 years and were supremely popular in the Regency era. One example of such pamphlets, or gossip sheets as they were more popularly known, is the Female Tatler from the early 1700s, run by a lady by the name of Mrs. Crackenthorpe, who rightly called herself, quote, a lady who knows everything, unquote. This magazine aired all of the upper class's dirty laundry, ranging from affairs to divorces. Thus, in spite of the show's homage to Gossip Girl, there's no denying that both shows are indebted to these age-old magazines and also perhaps man's innate need for piping hot tea. Okay, so now that we're done with the subject of magazines, let's unravel the answers to fans' questions about the books. Is the show the same as the books? Hoping that a show follows a book series to the T is definitely asking for too much, especially when the series is the world-building type and involves multiple plots and subplots spanning over a few years. In view of these problems, Bridgerton wasn't a point-for-point adaptation of Julia Quinn's books. In fact, the show chose to flesh out the arcs of a number of minor characters, like Marina Thompson, and further went on to introduce newer characters like Queen Charlotte as well. Speaking of Charlotte, and as we've already discussed before, the show doesn't remain true to the characters' racial identities either. The Duke of Hastings, for example, is white in the books and described as having icy blue eyes, as opposed to Regé-Jean Page's brown ones. All of these things combined with the new subplots for the Bridgerton siblings who are not navigating the marriage market right now have, sadly or otherwise is up to you to decide, created a huge gap between the events of the books and the show. Nevertheless, I think we're jumping the gun here since we only have a single season at our disposal right now. This talk of seasons brings us to our final and most burning question. Will there be newer seasons? We've got good news for those of you who've grown weirdly attached to the show, which was only a guilty pleasure hate watch for most of us when it first aired. Yes, the show will be making a comeback for its second season in March of the year 2022. And here's the best part, it will be followed by a third and fourth season as well. Although it may be subject to change, for now the season's release date is the 25th of March 2022. As far as its story is concerned, it will be borrowing heavily from the second novel in Quinn's book series, called The Viscount Who Loved Me. Therefore, the story will now shift from Daphne's relationship to that of her older brother, Anthony Bridgerton, and his hunt for his Viscountess. While this news seems kind of delightful, it's also laced with sadness because the shift will heighten the Duke's absence on the show. For those of you who missed it, Duke Bassett, played by Regé-Jean Page, has, as per the showrunner's announcement in April 2021, departed the storyline. Now, even though it was a bit of a shock for his fangirls, Page was aware of his departure from the show long before it began airing. To quote him indirectly, he was only there to contribute his bit before the Bridgerton family rolled on, which means, and yes, you figured it, most of the show's staple characters are going nowhere. Instead, the date announcement video has hinted at the addition of some new characters to the Bridgerton family, which fans suspect might be South Asian. Speaking of videos, Netflix hasn't released any footage or trailers for the second season as of yet. So to the fans who are always on the lookout for some kind of footage to pick apart, we're deeply sorry. Anywho, you can always try and decipher the date announcement video for the dynamics that Simone Ashley and Jonathan Bailey might have on the show's second season. Good luck, and we hope that some of your theories stand the test of time and screenplay writing. That's a wrap for this video. What's something you wish the creators had done differently? Do you think that they should follow the book series more closely? Let us know in your comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.